Body has been found in the Thames, believed to be that of Clapham chemical attack suspect Abdul Ezedi.
Yes, it was discovered in the water at Tower Pier, that's on the River Thames in central London yesterday, Scotland Yard have said.
The 35-year-old had been missing since the attack on a woman and her two daughters in London on the 31st of January.
Well, joining us now is GB News reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, thank you very much for covering this story. What do we know from the police about how this body was found and what exactly they have said?
Well, the last update we had before this breaking news is that the police believed that Abdul Ezedi had fallen into the Thames from Chelsea Bridge some 4 hours after the attack in South London on the 31st of January. He was the prime suspect for that alkaline chemical attack on a mother and her children in Clapham. But the latest we're hearing is that a body was found yesterday at 4 p.m. in Tower Pier by a passing boat who noticed a body floating in the water. And it's the distinctive clothing that Abdul Ezedi was seen wearing, captured by CCTV footage on that night, that has given police the first indication that it is him, their prime suspect. Commander John Saville of the Metropolitan Police said that formal identification could take some time because after a long time spent in the River Thames with its strong currents, immediate capacities for identification had been removed. Fingerprints are not possible, and so they're going to attempt to identify the body through more invasive means. That'll be dental records or DNA testing. So the body uncovered at 4 p.m. yesterday, following on the last analysis that the police gave, that a body, Abdul Ezedi, had fallen into the Thames after 4 hours after the attack took place. We saw that extensive manhunt footage from the evening of the attack, CCTV capturing him in East London, near Whitechapel in the Tower Hamlets area, but also passing even MI6 headquarters in Vauxhall, continuing his journey south. He seemed to be covering so much ground in London, but the final sighting was on Chelsea Bridge.
It's extraordinary, Charlie, because Chelsea Bridge is in West London. Tower Pier is getting towards East London. Perhaps the body had been floating down the river for weeks, which raises the question, if this body was floating in the River Thames, in the most densely populated part of the country, one of the most populated cities in the world, how did no one see it until yesterday?
Yeah, precisely, Tom. And how did nobody see him on the night is also the big question that was being raised with regards to the police investigation at the time. Of course, Abdul Ezedi was seen, as you're seeing on your screens, with that significant facial injury after the incident on the 31st of January. And how a body could evade detection for so much time on one of the busiest waterways in Europe even is extremely surprising. But they will take further efforts to identify the body now to confirm that it is Abdul Ezedi. At the moment, as we understand, the main clue that it is him is from that distinctive clothing. They've also given an update on the victim of that alkaline attack that shocked the nation on the 31st of January. They're saying that the victim is now in a stable condition. Her condition has improved, but they will continue to conduct efforts to identify this body found yesterday at 4 p.m. in the Tower Pier area of East London.
And I would imagine if the body has been in the Thames for 3 weeks, nearly 3 weeks, then it will be in a deteriorating condition, of course. So that makes it a little bit more tricky for the police to identify.
That's correct. So dental records or DNA testing is going to be the likely method to identify if this is Abdul Ezedi, that prime suspect, the Afghan-born 35-year-old asylum seeker who first arrived in Britain in 2016 on a lorry. You'll recall, Emily, that he had 2 failed asylum applications, finally processed after a conversion to Christianity, and also despite a sexual assault conviction. This story has been filled with controversy and concern from the very start. But now, with the discovery of a body in East London, the Met hopes they will have a final understanding of what has taken place here.
Charlie Peters, thank you. Now, the Metropolitan Police has released a video on X, formerly Twitter, where John Saville, the Met Police commander, gave an update in the last few minutes. Let's take a listen.
At about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, Monday the 19th of February, our Marine Support Unit recovered the body of a man from the Thames at Tower Pier. Based on the very distinctive clothing and some property that was on the body, we strongly believe this man to be Abdul Ezedi. As a consequence, we've made contact with his family to pass the news on about this development, and we will now formally work with His Majesty's Coroner for a formal identification and post-mortem.
So there you go. Those are the words of John Saville, the Met Police commander in charge of this case. Shall we speak to the former detective superintendent at the Metropolitan Police, Shabnam Chowdhury, for a little bit of insight into how this investigation may have been conducted? Shabnam, thank you very much for joining us. An absolutely huge manhunt. It's been 3 weeks or so since we learnt of this suspect, Abdul Ezedi, on the run. We now find out that he was potentially in the Thames for up to 3 weeks, last spotted in West London, then found in nearer East London. How would this search have been conducted, and why would it have taken this long, do you suspect?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that the Met had from the outset was when he went missing after literally 4 hours is a digital footprint from him. So whether it's bank accounts, whether it's his mobile phone, the CCTV footage, there was a timeline of that, but it didn't take you much further than Chelsea Bridge. So they worked on the basis that it's likely that he'd gone into the Thames. And remember, then they had a big manhunt on whether he was actually had gone into the Thames. What I would say is unlikely that they would have put significant resources into that search because they wouldn't have enough marine boats and so on with serving police officers to be able to do that. They would have worked with the Port of London authorities. And as we know from yesterday at 4 o'clock, when this body believed to be that of Ezedi was discovered, it was actually discovered by a passing boat. And when you think, you just mentioned he was last seen in Chelsea, but actually found in East London near Tower Bridge, the likelihood is that the body may have come to the surface for very short periods of time, or the tide and the current and the undercurrent of the water and other debris would have moved him. They've now got the job of actually identifying him because, as we all know, bodies do decompose in water or on land. So they're going to have a job trying to establish exactly that it is him. But let's not forget, the man has convictions. Ezedi was a convicted sex offender. He was on the registered sex offenders, and he also will have his DNA and fingerprints on the police database. So they may be able to match whatever DNA that they get with that is on the police database.
That's a really, really important point. We might get positive identification really rather soon. As and when we do get more information, of course, we will bring it forward. But Shabnam, a lot of people will be asking, what will be the stages of this investigation? It seemed like things were much more intense in those first 7 days. Images were being released, almost drip-fed to the media. CCTV images of the attacker Abdul Ezedi before the attack and afterwards with his distinctive wounds to his face. It then seemed to get quiet after around 7 days. Could it be that the police had basically sussed it out that he was likely in the river by that point?
I doubt that they would have got complacent. They would have continued their manhunt, but I think they were quietly confident that because of the fact that there was absolutely no trace whatsoever in terms of mobile phone or anything else, there was a strong likelihood that he'd gone into the river. They did continue their search, and remember, on the 11th of February, through that river search, 2 other male bodies were recovered whilst their marine officers were searching the Thames. Such a huge river, with such depth, with such changing times, current, weather, all would have played against them. Their priority would hopefully have been to find him alive.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Great to speak to you. Shabnam Chowdhury, who is a former detective superintendent at the Metropolitan Police. Now, what I was thinking is about what does this mean for justice when it comes to the victims?
Yes.
If this is Abdul Ezedi, which seems like it very much is, then you know, he's not going to be behind bars for life, is he?
Or is it perhaps greater justice that he won't be able to live out the rest of his days? Well, get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.com. Is it better that he's found dead, or should he have been locked up for the rest of his life?